I think any second here, any day now, as Burt
Yeah,
Bacharach wrote and Chuck Jackson sang. Any day now, we should be live, and we are. Hello, Michael Knight.
welcome to California. It's a sunny day. We're going to have temperatures close to 80 degrees today.
Ah,
And I bid you a good morning to Seattle, Washington. That's New York Vinnie up there in Seattle.
yeah, well, we are clear skies actually, which is a beautiful thing. I don't think we're going to get anywhere up near 80, but I think if we see high 60s today, there'd be no complaints around the card table.
And we'll
As
give you a more accurate 82 will be our high today.
Our high today will be brought to you by the
The Sunbreaks
guys on
Corporation.
Hot Shop down the corner. Let's see, what are we going to hit today? Yeah, I have weather from all over the place here because, my beautiful daughter is in Japan, so I'm keeping my eyes on what's going on there. All right, Seattle. Yeah, high of, it don't look like it's going to get to 60 today. They say 3 o'clock, it'll be 59.
And your
And
daughter Erin is in Japan visiting Tokyo or where?
she's all over the place. She is. She's been in Tokyo. She's been in Kyoto. She's been in Osaka. I forget where they are today, but yes, her and her friend are doing a grand tour of Japan, and sounds like they're having a blast. Uh, it's her first time over there. She really she enjoy. She loves to travel, so she has gone over and enjoyed the beauty of that country. And I think it's I texted her this morning that it's odd that you're over there and the Japanese Prime Minister is over here
That
with
leaves a vacancy, right?
our president. But I said, listen, you can you can just do a lot to help out relations between America and Japan by just being nice to people. They are right now in the Geomacha Minagawa section of Kyoto, um, which is right by the Shimokaracho section of Kyoto. So they're in Kyoto, and I think her friend has family outside of Kyoto. So I think they're going to visit them today. I think that's the plan. But she's been over there. She sounds like she's having a blast. Um,
The food's good. The people are nice. Can't go wrong.
yeah, yeah. I mean, listen, it's a great place to go. People are nice. They love Americans. Um, especially now. I know she's going back. She's going to a baseball game.
And Shohei Otani will not be there. He's got things to do.
Right, he's got things to do, but she's going to. I forget where she's going. She's not going to Tokyo. She couldn't get a ticket for Tokyo, but maybe she's going to see the Hanshin Carp or something like that, or I don't know. I know she's going to a game. She hasn't. She will definitely send me pictures when she goes to one. So it'd be interesting to see that.
Well,
But
speaking of baseball, I don't know how the Carp are doing this year, but the Giants lost again last night. They are now
early,
four wins and 8 losses,
it's early, Mike.
and there's nothing we can do about that except to marvel that they won 4 games. How the hell did they win 4 games? Actually, we have no idea how they won those games. We know how they
Well,
lost the 8. We can't
I
tell
know
you
how
how
they.
they won the 4.
I know how they scored. I know how they won those games. Uh, it was very simple. They scored more points, more runs than the other team.
That's one of our problems. We score runs, but not enough to win, and we want credit for those. Like if you go to the Giants homepage in Major League Baseball, their highlights are um, Nick Ahmed hits sacrifice fly in fourth inning. Not a double down the corner, not a home run into the bay, not a walk-off hit, but a sacrifice fly. Those that has to pass for what we call Giants highlights. Now, time for Giants highlights. Nick Ahmed, shortstop. Oh, look at that beautiful sacrifice fly. He hits the ball. They catch the ball, but through the magic of baseball, the guy scores from third. Go Giants.
Well, Mikey, it is early, so I'm not going to get too. It's still early. The Mariners are in the same spot. They're 4-8. They're having a pretty fairly dismal road trip at the moment, and I guess they're in Toronto, and they seem to be getting beat regularly by everybody that they run into.
Thus the
Um,
term dismal. Dismal.
yeah, it doesn't look good. It looks like it's the same old stuff as last year, and it's easy to point to a team like the Marlins and say, "Well, look, they've won one game all season." Well, the White Sox, who many people expected to contend in the AL Central, and they are 2-9. They've won two games all season, so you know that's why it's on a 62 game season because it evens out. But I think there's troubling signs with the Mariners. Um, by the way, the Pirates are 9-3. They ran into the Detroit Tigers, which has been over the last 10 games one of the hotter teams in baseball at 6-4. They won one there, and I think, and then lost. I think they went 1-2 on their trip into Detroit, and yeah, you just don't know. Although, again, with the Mariners, I think that when you start to think about who's on the hot seat in
They have a
Major
hot
League
seat.
Baseball, what
Mariners
manager?
didn't use Mariners didn't used to have a hot seat. They just had a seat, but it wasn't heated.
Well, I haven't had a hot seat for a long time, but I just don't know how long the Mariners are going to go with just with this type of losing because it's going to get pretty quiet there. There's already a buzz around the city of no buzz. There's already, um, people are disinterested already.
It's early.
Oh, it's early, but again, when you have a team that's never been to the World Series, that has some bright young talent on it, but you had a couple of guys that you traded away in the offseason because of money concerns, and both of those guys are doing well.
Because they're free of the Seattle influence.
Well, again, it does. Listen, I've talked about this a long time, Michael. We've talked about it when we were on KJR. There are certain players that come here and fold. Whether it's they don't like the weather, they don't like the traffic, they don't like being between two bodies of water, they don't like the roof on the stadium, they don't like the person that cleans their house. I don't know why it happens, but I've seen it time and time and time again. There's a certain type of player that comes here, and I don't know if it's no media pressure, no pressure from ownership, no nothing. Uh, they just don't get hits. Now
And then
we're
then they go to the White Sox or the Kansas City Royals and they have a perfectly normal season.
Yeah, or the Atlanta Braves, and they're part of a team that's now finds himself at 7-3, and the hitters that are going through the slow starts are starting to come out of the slow starts. So, you get these teams that the first month of and again the first month of the season, pitchers are usually ahead of the hitters. It's just You don't see a lot of guys that go out and boom, boom, boom. Um, it's there's a lot of strikeouts, a lot of adjusting, a lot of this, a lot of that. A lot of people move their jock strap this way or that way. And there's a lot of adjusting going on. But once they get
It's,
adjusted,
it's the nature of a jock to adjust the strap.
well, yeah, I mean, that thing can be uncomfortable, especially if some idiot in the clubhouse slaps a little Ben Gay in there or whatever they use these days to,
Sure,
you
cha
know,
cha.
to give you a hot dick. Um, I don't know. It just seems like
There's one other factor this year that ESPN's been writing about, and that is the number of damaged elbows in the pitching corps all across the American and National Leagues. The amount of bad arms and hurt arms and men headed for surgery is greater this year than at any time in recent years. And my orthopedic surgeon, Dr. Gregory Adamson, said the stress on the arm is enough for the tendons to blow out with one throw. Forget throwing at 90 miles an hour all afternoon. The male arm was not made to throw a baseball. It's an unnatural motion. It's an unnatural request to make of the body. And this year, more than any other year, seemingly, the Tommy John result for guys that are 25 years old and heading for their second Tommy John,
yeah.
it's a long list. And the league has no answer for it. Major League Baseball has no cure for it. And the Players Association is saying that the real problem is the pitch clock, which is farcical in its ridiculousness, but that's their non-medical comment. Yeah, you want people to have better elbows? Take away the pitch clock. Let them rest between pitches.
Well, that
doesn't make sense. It's
Yeah,
not the rest.
I
It's not the
mean,
rest that
people,
provides the problem.
you're asking an arm to do something that's unnatural, and this problem has been there time in and time out. Now,
Since Abner Doubleday.
Yeah, I tend to think that it has something more to do with putting guys on pitch counts. I've always thought that they hold these guys to such small pitch counts in effort to reserve their arms that the arms don't get toughened up and they don't develop. I mean, we didn't see this kind of stuff as much in the 60s and the 70s when guys went out and pitched 200, 300 innings. I mean, sometimes you'd see it, but it wasn't as prevalent.
Well, actually, the guys would just keep pitching with a sore elbow, thinking, well, it's sore. It's always been sore. It's going to be sore tomorrow. It's going to be sore the next day. Might as well throw anyhow.
Yeah.
So they would light him up, but the fact is that the only solution for that sore arm is going to be surgery.
Right, but guys didn't want to lose their place on a club. Guys didn't want to, if you're making. I mean, in those days, you might not even gotten paid if you weren't out there pitching. I mean, that was the way baseball was. So if you wanted to have a career in baseball, you kept your mouth shut. I don't know what the solution is. I don't know why. I'm not a kinetic scientist. The guy who who was the guy that was? There was a guy that studied kineticism. There was a relief pitcher. I forget who it is, but he actually became had a doctorate in kineticism.
I remember who you mean, Mike Marshall, wasn't it?
Mike Marshall, yes, thank you, Mike Marshall. And he hasn't figured it out. He didn't figure it out. I don't know that anybody really can figure it out, except that you're not supposed to throw the ball that way.
Well, if you're Warren Spahn or Juan Marichal, you had your whole career without too many arm problems. Whitey Ford, another good example. But then there's guys who have remarkable gifts in terms of how fast they can throw it and where they're located and what kind of their pitches and their varieties and their ability to take the mound with a lot of wizard's tricks, and yet they go down for another surgery.
Well, I also think that there's pressure to throw at I mean when we were growing up, a 90-mile-an-hour fastball was about as fast as it was going to go. You didn't see
And
anybody throwing 100-mile-an-hour fastball.
no,
You just didn't see it. Now, um, you know, hitting 100 on the clock is there's always going to be somebody in a given baseball game that's going to be able to do it, unless you have a couple of eephus pitchers guys out there, and you don't see that at all, if not too often. There's I think one guy throwing that kind of off-speed stuff, but it's turned into a power game.
and nobody throws junk. Nobody.
Right. Nobody throws junk anymore. Nobody pitches anymore. People throw the ball. They want to throw the ball past the pitcher, challenge the pitcher, challenge the batter, I should say. And so the way they challenge the batter is not by moving the ball around,
Just blowing it
but
by them.
but by just blowing it by him. And that's going to take a toll on you, because if you're throwing, I don't know, you're throwing 8 pitches to a batter, and 5 of them are 100-mile-an-hour or 98-mile-an-hour fastballs, that's going to wear your arm out.
And the only weapon you have at your disposal when you're pitching that way is to throw it 80 miles an hour, and then they can't hit it.
Right. Or to come up with I think that's why Roger Craig's pitching staffs on the Giants, and when he was a manager and a pitching coach, his pitching staffs, because he taught them that split finger fastball and different pitches that didn't require the full use of your arm at all times. So I don't know. I don't know if they're going to change their philosophy on it, but when you have 4 or 5 guys sitting on a disabled list, an injured list, that and they're all getting paid $30 million a year, that's a whole lot of money going up in smoke.
To rehab. The Giants have 3 or 4 starting pitchers, all coming back from various surgeries, Tommy John among them. And the future looks good in terms of their return. They're healing on the remarkable, because they're athletes, they're healing well, they're healing quickly. Shohei Ohtani, who we've already talked about, is not pitching this year because he's coming back from a surgery, and yet he's hitting multiple doubles in games. He's got a repaired arm that he can't throw with, but he can still hit with it. And it's an example of his extraordinary gifts to see how well he's hitting this year with an arm that would probably hamper most batters. But the Giants right now are waiting patiently for the return of like 3 or 4 starting pitchers, and the end of the second part of the season, should we have a rejuvenated pitching core, could be good for the Giants, and we can look back at these days and say, oh yeah, that was funny, we overreacted when they were 4-8. But the problem is not just the Giants or the Mets or the Mariners. The problem is league-wide in terms of injured arms, and this year it seems like it's taken a greater toll than many times in the past, because these guys can't get out of spring training without surgery, and it's a problem that the sport does not have an answer for.
Yeah, I don't buy the pitch clock thing at all. I mean, I don't like the pitch clock, and I would love to see it go away as much as anybody, but I don't know that by rushing these guys with the pitch clock, that you're causing this kind of harm to their arms. Again, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a kineticist, or I'm not a doctor certainly, but it just seems to me that for whatever reason, and I would pin it more on everybody trying to throw the ball through a car wash without getting it wet, as Ralph Kiner used to say. That was, in those days, that was a rare thing to see somebody hurl it like that. There weren't very many people that could hurl it like that. A lot of people got by on junk and
Location.
on off-speed pitches, and now when a guy gets, I mean, I don't know, you don't see a lot of guys throwing off-speed stuff. So
Nope.
I don't know. It's a shame because, when you see somebody that gets paid that kind of money and they're sitting on the injured list, or they're rehabbing, or they're not contributing, uh, it it's got to be frustrating for clubs, frustrating for fans, frustrating for everybody.
And
But
it's
what are you
frustrating for a bit for well, that's just it. There's what can you do? What changes could you make that would be equivalent to changes that they made in football to make the game safer? Well, there's nothing you can do about baseball because the throwing of the ball is intricate to every element of the game.
right?
It's not just the pitchers who are throwing it, but how come the right fielder who has the longest throw in baseball doesn't have a bad arm? Of course, someone will raise their hand and say, well, we have an outfielder that does have a bad arm. But I'm saying it's not endemic to the outfield. Outfielders not having surgery to repair their injured arms because of the long throw.
Right, and they're not throwing it 100 times a game, or 80 times a game, or 70 times a game. They're not throwing the ball that much. I mean, that's part of, I think, what the pitchers' problems are, is they're, hurling the ball 70, 60, 70, 80, maybe even 90 in some cases times a game.
And they started trying to throw 90 mile an hour when they were still in high school.
Right, right, right. It's not like they started when they got to the major leagues. I
So
mean, everybody.
by the time they're 25, that arm is worn out.
Right.
The elbow, especially.
Any pitching coach that you talk to will tell you, will advise you, will say to you, what's your first piece of advice to young pitchers? And they will tell you, don't try to throw 90 miles an hour in a little league, because you're going to ruin your arm. You're going to hurt your arm. And also, don't throw. Advice used to be, don't throw curveballs.
Or the screwball. Remember, the
Or the
screwball
screwball.
was
Don't imitate, because your arm's not developed enough yet. But now you have these kids, and again, they go, you look at these kids in the Little League World Series, and, they imitate the guys they see on TV.
right.
And they're out there trying to bring it up at, 80 miles an hour, which for a Little Leaguer is pretty quick. That's probably the equivalent of 100 to a Major Leaguer. And when you have young, developing bones, it's got to cause a problem, I think, at some point. For some people, I guess some people it doesn't, right?
The doctor that I mentioned, Dr. Gregory Adamson, has repaired a lot of professional arms, football players, baseball players, whatever the case may be. He did my biceps tendon when I snapped my arm. And the advice that he gave to young pitchers who have talent and have a possible career ahead of them is do not throw until you get to college.
Yeah, I would.
Do not take a developing arm in high school and see what you can do in terms of speed and location and preparing yourself for a professional career.
Yeah, from every pitching coach that I've ever spoken to has had that similar advice: is don't try to be a hero at the high school or junior high school level, because you'll do more harm than good, and you'll never wind up getting to the big leagues.
And you've only got so many tosses in that arm. I don't know how many, and it's different for everybody. But the clock is ticking when you start throwing for speed.
I've always thought that too. Whenever I see somebody like waste a pitch or something like that, I've always said to myself, "Man, you only got why are you doing that?" And it happens to everybody. I mean, listen, I was there.
Did Tom Seaver or Whitey Ford ever waste a pitch? throw a pitch that had no meaning? I don't think so.
I don't know. I mean, I didn't see each one of their games all the time, but it would surprise me if they did. Especially Seaver. Seaver was uniquely conscious of his body and his mechanics. He was probably one of the most aware players when it came to taking care of himself and his performance and all of that kind of
How
stuff.
many surgeries did he have? Do you recall, if any?
I have no idea. I don't. Oh man, I'm trying to think. I don't. I know he had a couple of off-season ones, but I'm not sure he had a major. I'm not sure he had a major surgery.
I wonder what the doctors did before Tommy John. They did a procedure that's been named after the Angels pitcher. Did they just say, "Well, I don't know what we're going to do. Your medial collateral ligament in your elbow is a mess. Maybe I could go in there and fiddle around, see what I can do. I'll have to open you up to figure it out. There'll be a recoup. You'll be out of the game for 6 months. And there's no guarantee." Now they say, "Here's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to take this and put it here. It's happened 1,000 times. I've done this surgery 600 times, and you'll be back in exactly these many months."
Yeah, well, and I'm sure that surgical improvements and different things that they've learned and so on and so forth. Who was one guy that I think they took a tendon from his leg or
Mm-hmm.
something and put it in his arm? I mean, there's all sorts of stuff that happens now that didn't happen before. Before Tommy John. I mean, Tommy John surgery really accelerated the study and the solution of arms, of pitching arms. I mean, it
Here's
really
what's
brought
wrong, and
it.
here's how we fix it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It got them away from, well, here's some ice, put it on it, and get back out there.
And that's not a bad idea, but it's not a cure.
Well, it doesn't work all the time when you have to stress your arm out that. But I don't know. For my money, I would think that the the speeds that people have to throw it at these days, and the lowering of pitch counts on certain players, maybe doesn't allow them to get their arms up that tough. By the way, Kellenic with the Braves is a guy that they traded away in the offseason.
The
Uh,
Mariners.
Mariners is hitting 462 for the almost said Milwaukee Atlanta Braves.
That's a big number for a batting average.
Yeah, he's got no home runs, but 12 hits, 4 runs, 3 ribbies, an OPS of 1.094, and he is hitting over double what his career batting average is. Career batting average is 212.
Why did they trade him?
When did they trade him? In the
Why?
offseason. Um, that I guess the line is it just looked like a right trade for them. I think the real line is that for whatever reason they didn't think that he was going to ever turn into anything as a Mariner.
Oh, as a Mariner.
As a Mariner, yes.
He can play ball, but he can't play ball here.
Can't play ball here. There were rumblings. Last year, after a particularly frustrating at bat, he went into the dugout and he hit a wall with his fist, I believe it was, and broke his hand.
Ouch.
And right, and that I think soured them. It wasn't just the only thing, but I think that was one of the things that soured the Mariner brass on him.
He's not our kind of player.
He's not our kind of guy. He's not Edgar Martinez. He's not Jay. He's not that. They were hoping he was going to be a Jay Buhner, but it never turned out that way. I think he's going to be a really good player. I don't know if he's going to be a great player. I just think that he's going to be, in my watching him, he seems to me, yeah, he has a bit of an attitude, but he wants to win. I don't think he has a bad attitude. I mean, I'd rather have a guy that gets upset with himself when he's not doing well than a guy that just goes, well, I'm getting paid
I'm putting
either
this game
way.
behind me. Yeah.
Yeah. Or just come out and do it again tomorrow. Yeah, that's true, but at some point you have to hold yourself accountable. And I think that Kellenick, that was one of his problems, is that he held himself accountable maybe a little too much. So,
Well, I've seen the opposite with Giants when we've had miserable years, and we had a outfielder, center fielder, Brett played for the Dodgers too. Good hitter, speedy guy, not a big outfielder, a little outfielder. Brett.
not Beatty.
Well, anyway, no.
No.
And he did a post game show. He was part of the post game show, and he put everything behind him. Well, Bob, we lost it 12-0. We're gonna have to put this game behind us. Every day in the postseason, in the post game show, he was telling them what they had to put behind them, and it was a lot of stuff that you had to put behind you if you were going to be a Giant that year. You had to put it. In fact, you had to put it all behind you.
After a while, you got to go rent a truck. Well,
never once did they say, let's consider what really went wrong in this game. Let's not put it behind us. Let's study this one and see if we can learn something from it. Nope, we're going to put it behind us.
I have more admiration for the guy that comes out and says, I suck today. I wasn't able to see the ball. I wasn't able to hit the ball. I was behind. I was in front of the pitch. Whatever you want to. I have more respect for that. And in a lot of way, while I didn't have respect for the guy, there was a player that was here many years ago, and I interviewed him, and he got into the doghouse with Piniella. And Piniella, when you're in Lou's doghouse, it's not a good place to be. And, instead of saying something like, gee, well, I'm going to work hard and do whatever I can do to get out of there and to show the rest of the club and Lou and everybody that I want to be here and that I want to, his answer to me was, I'm getting paid no matter what. They can sit me down. They can sit me down. I'll sit down the end of the bench all season if that's what they want.
The doghouse is supposed to be a place where you learn what to say. That's not what you say.
And this guy was one of the moves, I think, that hurt the Mariners in that early 2000s run. Among many things that hurt the Mariners. Well, you talk about a team that just didn't know how to keep it going. But that answer is not a good answer. But I will say, and I always said, that the guy was honest. He didn't give me, he didn't sit there and give me the, I'm going to work hard, which you would expect anybody to say. Instead, he just said what was on his mind.
Honest but foolish.
Wasn't smart to say, and he was gone after that. After I think the next season, tremendous bust for the club. But again, there's guys that come here that something happens to them. I don't know exactly what it is, but they lose that competitive.
Lose the edge.
The edge, yeah, the edge that made them great in another place. And whether it's, I don't know if it's media pressure, I don't know if it's pressure from the manager, I don't know what, but, and I'll tell you up here, I think the thing that is interesting to me is, how long do you go with your current manager if your club is performing like this? At what point do you look at Scott Service and say, you've had years
You've had plenty of time, more than
You've had
enough,
plenty of time. You're one of the
to, sh-
senior
to,
managers
to
in the
show us what
major
kind of
league,
manager you can be. Yeah,
and you've gotten this club to one playoff game. You know, when do you lay that responsibility on him and say it's time for a change? Now, I think there's something to be said for sticking with somebody if you believe that he's the right guy for the organization. No matter what fans say, no matter what the media says, there were a lot of people forget that there was a lot of people around here in 1999 that wanted to fire Lou Piniella.
of course, because he was so out front and obvious, and
Well,
he was.
he had had 98 and 99 were not great years for the Mariners. They missed it by, let me see if I got this right. I think they missed it by 2 games in the playoffs I'm talking about in 98, or was that 96? I forget. But there was a point in there where they had missed it by like 2 games. It came down to the last weekend of the season in Oakland. And
Or
then
Sacramento.
or Sacramento, yeah. And they just but when Woody left and Pat Gillett took over, Pat wanted Lou. He said one of the conditions I take over this club is that Piniella stays. Because he's my guy.
And he determined
And
that with all the problems that the Mariners might have, the manager was not one of them.
the manager was not one of them. This guy knew how to manage. Hey, he got him there in 95. He got him there in 97. Um, and he was the kind of manager you wanted. He was a fiery guy. He was an old school manager. And the players respected him.
Well,
You know,
the Giants have a similar problem because they've made the changes and get no results. They have Bob Melvin that took over from Gabe Kapler, new manager. Got a new third baseman, Matt Chapman. They got a new shortstop, Nick Ahmed, although he's a retread. They got a new center fielder, Jung Ho Lee. They got a couple new starting pitchers. And nothing has changed. The performance on the field with a half remade team and new faces at all the important spots around the field has yielded not even a 500 ball club. And yes, they have some injuries to their pitching staff that we've already talked about that are provided them with problems that they have to fill with less seasoned players. But the performance, the attitude, the atmosphere, the magic, the bingo looks just like last year to me. And
well, I'm
and
surprised.
guys that are out there like Mike Yastrzemski can't win for losing, can't get it started. I bemoan these guys when the game's over and they have to figure out how to take a shower and find their clothes and find their car and find their way home. How the hell do they do it every day? They don't seem to have the direction that's necessary for a winning ball club.
Well, yeah, it certainly doesn't look like it. But again, we're 20 games into the season, 25 games into the season. There's a lot of clubs that don't look like it at the beginning. Now, is this a problem that has gone on for a number of years? And I guess this is all the kind of stuff you have to consider when you're a general manager. We've had this problem for a number of years, and the Mariners have been notorious slow starters. They were, even 2 years ago when I went to the playoffs, I think they were under 500 at the All-Star break, and then they came on in the second part of the season. Last year, the opposite happened. They were moving along. They looked like they were the class of the league. I think they had the best record in the league for a couple of weeks running, and then all of a sudden, the last 3 weeks of the season, 4 weeks
Oh
of the
boy,
season, just fell apart. They went right off the table.
right off the table. It was awful. Because they were hot stuff.
Yeah, yeah. It just I don't know what happened, but it just seemed like I
They lost
mean,
interest.
granted, he had a subpar year out of Julio Rodriguez, so that didn't help. But again, there's a lot of problems with the Mariners. Um, I'm not close enough to the club right now to know exactly what those problems are, and I don't know if it's the manager or not. I used to, when I was there, I would know what was going on, and and you kind of knew you had to say, well, this isn't going to help, and that's not going to help, and certainly the front office harassing the manager isn't going to help. No matter what you do, what you do, but you can't. The last thing you want to do is piss off your manager. That never has a good result for anybody. The manager,
Because
the ball club, the front office, the fans.
he's
It
not thinking
never.
about the next inning. He's thinking about playing golf at Pebble Beach.
Well, he's thinking about what his next move is at the very least.
Right.
Even if he's not thinking about playing golf at Pebble Beach or somewhere down in Florida, he's still thinking about what am I, what's my next move? And that's what happened in 2002 with the Mariners. You pissed off the manager, and once you did that, he was in his mind. He was out of there.
Yeah.
And at the time, he was somebody that didn't have to put up with that crap because there was another place he could go. He was a hot manager. And he wound up going to Tampa Bay because
Home.
I guess the story was, which was always bull crap to me, that he wanted to be closer to his family, which is the usual excuse. Griffey used it, so why not? Why not, Pinella?
But your family's in Cincinnati. Why do you want to go there? Well, I don't, but they're paying me.
But but they'd be happy to have me. I don't know. I think that at some point, though, it's the age old question: do you make a change for the sake of just making a change to shake up your ball club, to show that nobody's indestructible? Nobody's. Everybody's can be is held accountable on this team, and is the next guy you're going to get be able to do any better? How many times do these managing changes work?
A good example was one that just happened in college basketball with John Calipari leaving Kentucky and going to Arkansas. And Arkansas not even paying him. It's John Tyson from the Dead Chicken Factory is paying the heavy freight. The university's not on the hook for it. So it's like you come into town, somebody else is paying you. We'll take a shot on you. Sure, you're welcome here. You can run the Cub. You're in charge. We don't have to pay you, right? I just want to make sure we're not paying you.
Well, my immediate reaction to that is how many times a year is Calipari going to have to dress up in a chicken outfit and stand in front of some supermarket opening?
He's got to do it before every rally. You have a rally on Friday on campus. He's got to be in the chicken costume.
Guys are always weird, aren't they? The chicken guys. I mean, I've tracked now, watched 3 chicken guys. And there's always something a little weird about each one of them. There was the guy here in Tacoma, George Foster. He was a weird dude. And then you have this guy, the Tyson guy. That's a weird setup there. And then you had the guy back east, Frank Purdue, who used to make the television commercials and everything. Oh, yes. And he was a weird guy.
And don't forget the San Diego chicken.
Yeah, well, I don't know who he belonged to. I think he was. I don't know why they had a chicken. is San Diego known for chicken?
No, they just had that crazy mascot who was famous for working for KGB radio, and then he
Right.
worked for the
Ted
local sports.
Giannoulis, wasn't it?
Yeah, he had a Greek last name whose name
Yeah, Ted Giannoulis
yeah,
was the San Diego chicken. Really, kind of one of the first of the
super mascots.
super mascots. Yeah, clubs had mascots before that, but he was the one that Mr. Met, when I was growing up, never jumped up on top of the dugout. I mean, he was at the ballpark, and you could get your picture taken with him and shake his hand, but I don't know that you could, that I ever saw Mr. Met jump up on top of the first base dugout and put his hands up, because there was no cheerleaders in baseball. And then all of a sudden, this overstuffed chicken.
He was funny, but he was strange. He took a lot of chances and went through a lot of physical challenges.
Yeah. Well, he was the first of for baseball, and I guess they copped it off of basketball. I think had the mascots. Because basketball's a zoo. Yeah, the Steelers had a mascot too, Steely McSteel.
Steely McSteel.
Steely McSteel.
And what did he look like?
He looked like a construction worker with a big girder of steel sticking out of his helmet.
So a brain injury.
Could have been, but actually, he was one of I thought he was always kind of a cool mascot, because he didn't look like, he wasn't an animal; he was a human. Just like the Pirates had the Bucky Bucko there. They had the pirate. They had a guy that dressed up as a pirate, but you hardly ever saw them. I mean, they sent Steely McSteel out to like public event, public like parades and stuff like that. Because I had somewhere I have a picture of me hanging out with Steely McSteel in the back of my El Camino, which
when he
is
when he turned his head, would he hit somebody with a girder?
No, they had the girder up high enough, but he did have to watch if he was in a convertible under a low bridge. But Steely McSteel, or Steely McBeam, I think it was actually, not Steely McSteel. Steely McBeam, I think, was his name. But I thought he was a cool mascot. Again, wasn't obtrusive, wasn't out there in the middle of the field jumping around. He just kind of hung out.
Wasn't the Philly fanatic?
Definitely not the Philly fanatic. Definitely not the pirate. Well, in later years, the Pirates had the parrot. Had the pirate parrot.
Pirate parrot, yeah.
Which I think was just the Philly fanatic with a different paint job.
Same guy.
I don't know where, And then, of course, here in Seattle, we had the the all-time favorite Squatch.
Sasquatch.
Who was a very strange dude.
I never knowingly met him without his uniform on, without his costume on.
Yeah, you met the Squatch. The Squatch was at our show once, but he wasn't dressed as the Squatch. He was just the Squatch. He was just him. And he actually came to our show once.
And he was a gymnast.
In the office upstairs, and he came down. Because at that time, the Sonic's office and KJR was together. They were all in one building. And
I don't recall meeting him. Maybe I did.
Yeah, no, he was definitely there. I don't even know if he may have not even wanted to be introduced as the Squatch. But if you saw a picture of him out of his uniform, I think you'd recognize him. I think you'd say, "Oh yeah, that guy."
And he took a lot of chances. He was doing those big half-court flips and dunks.
Yeah, no, he was good. He was good. And then for some reason they switched him. They got rid of the Squatch that we knew, and got a different Squatch. And I always thought the first Squatch was better, but he was a bit of a diva. So
Why can't you be
so I
nice like the
figured out all
Mariner
that.
Moose? Yeah, be like the Mariner Moose, or be like the Husky over there at the Motley Cut. But that's a real dog. I can't do that.
You mean the day the Mariner Moose started punching somebody in the stands?
You know, you're under a lot of pressure as a public figure. Sooner or later, you're going to
Yeah.
boil over.
Hey, if somebody spit on my antlers, I'd be a little pissed off about it too.
Not on the antlers. Leave the antlers alone.
I think that that's I think that that's like a thing. I think if you spit on a pair of antlers, you're in for trouble.
There's trouble. Trouble afoot.
Yeah, our friend Jim Palazzo has chimed in here. Thank you for listening, Jim. Jerry and Scott should have been let go after 2023. Way too many years of mediocre Seattle baseball. Goal needs to be a World Series championship. Starts with ownership and leadership. Hold all the players accountable. Well, those are good ideas, Jim. But the reality is how do you hold a player accountable?
Or better yet, just answer the simple question: when can you put together a team that's going to beat the Yankees or the Dodgers? Tell me when.
Well,
When are you
I
going to
don't
do
know.
it? You're going to do it next week. You're going to do it in 2 weeks. You're going to do it next year, and tell me how.
Well, strangely enough, it was Woody Woodward that was the last one to put together a team that beat the Yankees and the Dodgers, wasn't it? Much aligned Woody Woodward, who people in this town made so much fun of, but yet put together a team that could, despite financial restrictions, because they didn't have Safeco Field as a revenue stream back then. They were playing in the Kingdom, and
Oh
yet this
Lordy.
guy put together a team that beat the Yankees, uh, and embarrassed George Steinbrenner so much that he had to walk out of the building. So I'd say on that alone, and then he came back and he got back into the playoffs a year later, and as I said, would have gone in '96. So it can be done. I mean, as people will say, well, look at the Yankees payroll. Well, payroll isn't everything in baseball. It's a lot, but it's not everything. Look at the Mets.
They have a
You know, they
payroll.
got one of the biggest payrolls in baseball, and they can't find their way out of a paper bag. So it's. I will always contend that it's smarts that you need first. Besides, you need to be able to bring good players in. Um, but again, I don't know how you hold players accountable except to sit them down. And on a club like the Mariners, I don't know that the second guy you put up, if you sit one guy down or send him down or whatever, is going to be better than the guy you're sending down. You
And
don't have a
sometimes your hot
thick
AAA
catalog.
team can motivate the major league team. If there's guys in AAA that are boiling to get back to the show. He's coming to town. He's coming to take your job, buddy.
Yeah.
So
But as I go back to what I said before, that there are players who will say to you, they're paying me, so I don't care. And when you have that situation on your club, that's not a good situation.
and that does you're not hearing anybody on the Dodgers saying, look, we lost today's game, but who cares? I'm being paid. They pay me $700 million. What do I care if we win? It's not about winning, it's about being paid. Well, that attitude usually gets fostered on a team that can't win, is not winning.
Well, if you look at the teams that have that kind of attitude, Michael, they're usually the teams that play not to win, but to make money. Right? I mean, you go and you look at the Pirates. everybody's goal is to get to the World Series. I don't think there's a club that doesn't believe at the beginning of the season that they don't have a shot at getting to the World Series. Very few clubs, if any, believe that they have no shot. Athletes have a natural thing of saying, "I'm here to win, and I'm going to, try to the best of my abilities." But as the season goes on, you realize that the owners aren't about getting to the World Series; that the owners are about getting to a financial place, that it's a business.
Right.
And there are some people that come in, like the Steinbrenners and the Uncle Steves of the world, and the Dodgers, and they will spend anything because winning is the most important thing in their minds. But then there are some owners that will not spend. They don't have an unlimited revenue source, or circumstances present themselves that they can't spend all of the money on players, that they got to spend it somewhere else,
Like on renovations.
like on buying the TV network that your team is on, or in the case of the Pirates, they have to show a profit. The owner of the team is in the entertainment business, and he sees entertainment as not just winning, but being able to give people a certain value for their dollar when they come to the ballpark. And they believe that fireworks shows and all you can eat nights and merchandise giveaways will attract just as many people
As winning.
as winning a World Series. And so the winning becomes secondary. I think everybody wants to win. It's just how much do you want to spend to win?
How much do you have to spend to be able to even say you're in the game to win? You see,
Yeah.
they have a different business model, some of these owners. The Pirates example is a perfect one, where the profit, no matter how meager, is the goal. And that comes with people in the stands who are just as attracted to fireworks over time as they are to a home run hitting shortstop.
It's very true.
But
Very, very true.
nothing brings fans into the ballpark, any ballpark in any sport, like winning does. And nothing solves the problems of a team, the emotional, financial, and even some of the ridiculous things that players develop in their head when they have a rival on the team. Well, all that can be swept aside with a 10-game winning streak.
Yeah.
And invariably, winning solves all your problems, especially the
Winning
financial
cures
ones.
a lot, man. Nobody was running around when the Pirates had their little winning few years back in the early tens, and they had some nice players on that club, and you can still visit all of those players. They're all on different teams now. Many of them, not all of them, but you look at a Tyler Glasnow or a Charlie Morton or the kid in New York with the Yankees. I mean, they were all Pirates at one time, but the Pirates didn't want to pay him. They didn't want to pay him the kind of money that they were going to make in New York, or they realized that the losing philosophy, or the philosophy of we're here to make money too, was not what they wanted to be involved in. They wanted to be in a place where winning the World Series was the goal. And I mean the real goal,
Yes.
not just the owner coming down and standing in the middle of the clubhouse in spring training and saying, our goal here, no matter what you hear in the media and this and that and the other thing, is to win the World Series.
But we're not getting that pitcher that was in the trade. We're not changing our shortstop. We're not shortening the fences. We're not bringing in two more starters. And we're going to hope that last year's team finds the motivation to win, to be able to take us to the World Series. It's on your head. It's on
Last
your
year's
plate.
team minus two people that were a key part of the team,
Yeah, right.
or at least one person that was a key part of the team.
So that's opportunity for the guys who stepped up. Now our AAA shortstop and second baseman, a great double play combination, but neither one of them can hit. Well, we're asking them to find their bat this year. Find your swing, find your groove, be a part of the team, lead us to the World Series.
It's what you do when you got the bat in your hands. I mean, the bat boy. They even have a guy sitting in the dugout, a bat boy, who will hand you the bat.
The right bat.
He will say to you, "This is your bat." Here you
go. It's got your name on it and everything.
Got your number on it right down here. See, 12. That's you.
Good luck now.
Yeah. And he'll hand you a pine tar. Do you need pine tar? Do you need talcum powder? What do you need on that bat to make it feel comfortable for you? Some bat boys will even go in and help you cork the bat if they think they can get away with it.
They got a special drill in the clubhouse to hollow it out.
A special drill in the clubhouse. Ask George Brett.
By the way, can you think of a major league power hitter that bats without gloves? It just holds the bat in his hand.
Yeah, there has been one that I saw. I can't remember if I saw him last year or the year before, but there's like one guy, I think, or two guys, right?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. I know it has to be somebody that doesn't use gloves.
Yeah, there's one guy, and for the life of me, I can't remember who it is. But one guy definitely, and maybe two, and I think he's in the American League, if I'm not mistaken.
The only guy we can think of is Mike Marshall, so just say it's him.
No, how about, no, let's go with somebody different. Let's go with, who's somebody we should go? Shooty Babbitt. I always like Shooty Babbitt. Let's say he's the guy.
I was like John the Count Montefusco, although he was a pitcher.
Yeah, speaking about pitchers, we do have to make note of a passing of a man who is part of history in New York City baseball, and not the greatest history, but I spent many hours watching him. Pat Zachary died last week. And Pat Zachary, who was a pitcher, one of the only pitchers I ever remember with like a full beard. I mean, he had a full beard on in the 70s. You didn't see that. Now it's common.
Did he play for House of Zion?
No, he didn't. He came over to the Mets from the Cincinnati Reds. And he came over with, was it Steve Henderson and Doug Flynn? Boy, there was somebody else in that trade too, and I'm forgetting their name, unfortunately. But Henderson, Flynn, and Zachary. Dan Norman was the other guy. Dan Norman came over from the Reds. There may have been another guy in there too, but if there's that many people coming over, you know who they traded him for.
Seaver.
Yes, that was the Tom Seaver trade, the famous Black Friday. The New York Times called them 4 players of far less magnitude. And he wasn't a horrible pitcher. He was the co-winner of the Rookie of the Year back in '76, but he
wasn't Tom Seaver.
He wasn't Tom Seaver.
Yeah.
And he was part, but he was one of those guys that had a lot of promise. A ton of promise, as a matter of fact. And I got it right. They sent him to Cincinnati for Doug Flynn, Steve Henderson, Dan Norman, and Pat Zachary. which every Met fan, if you don't know that trade, you can't
You
really
weren't.
call yourself.
You just weren't alive during that time.
You weren't around, and you have no sense of knowing what's going on around you. And to be fair, he won 7 of his first 8 decisions for the Mets. He went to the All-Star team, and halfway through the season, he was 10-3. So the trade actually probably looked kind of good at that point.
How's his elbow?
Well, it was still on him when he passed away.
That's a
So
good sign.
So it's sad. He was again, he was part of a Mets team that was absolutely horrible. I mean, I think the good God, what was the pitching rotation? It was like Craig Swan, Pat Zachary, Pete Falcone. I think Mike
And John the
Marshall.
Count Montefusco.
I think the aforementioned Mike Marshall might have been in the bullpen of one of those years.
Wow.
I think they might have, Neil Allen was the top reliever.
Oh, I finally thought of the guy I was trying to think of, Brett Butler. There you go. We're going to
Brett
put this
Butler.
behind us. Brett, how do you feel about the game tonight? Well, we're just going to put it behind us. But that's what you said last night. Well, we put that game behind us. Now we're going to put this one behind us. You guys ever thinking about winning? Would you like to win a game and maybe not put something behind you? Well, right now, those thoughts have to be put behind us too.
You got to
But
put
we
everything.
do have another game tomorrow, right? Yeah, we got another game. We got another game tomorrow.
Well, that works usually until September 30th.
When it's no longer early.
When at that point you there's no tomorrow. The season's over. You're not in the money.
Pitchers and catchers
You'll
in
be
6 months.
You'll be giving us that line next year. Anyway,
Farewell, Pat Zachary.
Farewell, 71 years old. Pat Zachary, again, a guy that was in a horrible situation. He never was going to be Tom Seaver.
It's a no-win situation.
It's a no-win situation. You're coming in. You're part of a trade that Cincinnati could have given you Pete Rose, Dave Concepcion, Tom Hume, and
Joe Morgan,
Tony Perez, and it wouldn't have been enough for Seaver.
Because their magnitude was of a lesser variety.
Well, you had a mortal lock Hall of Famer that wanted to stay in New York. He didn't want to leave.
And the Mets just couldn't figure it out.
Well, they didn't want to pay him. And the owners of the club, the guy that was running the club, M. Donald Grant, had an ally in a sports writer named Dick Young.
Yeah. What a combo they were.
Dick Young
what a perfect pair.
Tom Seaver to the nth degree. And Seaver took it until Young wrote something about his wife. And Tom Seaver's wife, Nancy, was the Tess Trueheart of New York baseball. She was pure and clean, and it was Nancy Seaver, man.
Yeah, but not good enough for Mr. Young.
But not good enough for Dick Young and M. Donald Grant, who M. Donald Grant didn't want. This is the same guy. The same guy who said, I don't want to draft Reggie Jackson because he's black.
Well,
same guy.
That.
Yeah.
Quite a judge of character.
Yeah, unfortunately, this bastard noticed that, could you imagine what a Mets club would have been like with Tom Seaver and Reggie Jackson on it? It
How
would
did
have
Dwight
been like,
Gooden and Darryl Strawberry ever get on the team?
well, M. Donald Grant was gone by then.
Okay, good answer. I figured that was
Yeah,
it.
I don't think M. Donald Grant lasted much longer after the Seaver trade. I think that his tactics backfired on him, and they got rid of him and named Lorinda DeRoulet, who was the daughter of Joan Payson, who owned the team. People forget that the Mets had one of the first female owners in baseball history. But she put her daughter in charge of the team. And
Marge Schott would have never done that.
yeah, they immediately went further downhill. They made some extremely questionable moves, and it was a great place to hang out in 78, 79, 80, 81, because you could
you could
go
move down to the good seats.
out like this, and on a sunny afternoon, put your legs up on the seat in front of you, smoke a little doobage.
There's nobody there.
And there was nobody there, man. I think I was part. We had, I think it was 2,378 people. We had that was the lowest crowd ever in Shea Stadium, and the Post took a picture of it, and you can actually see me stretched out.
Hold that picture. I'm going to find Vinnie. There he is.
20. Well, you couldn't miss me. I was a large guy still. Yeah, I mean, we used to go to, that was what we did when we hung out. It was I got fired from my job in June and decided that I had enough money to take the summer off. And so me and my friend Murray and an assortment of other people went to the ballpark every day. It's 4 stops down. So we would either take the train or we would take the car and we would stop at the deli on 104th Street, get a couple of Italian sandwiches, and go to the ballpark.
Was Murray the guy that Hail Murray was named after? There's Hail Mary, but then when you're really in trouble, it's Hail Murray. Is he the same guy?
No, different guy. But Murray was, me and him, we went, and we went to, I think that year, I want to say 79 and 80. I think in 79 we went to like 70 games.
Wow. Good effort.
And in 80 we went to something like 65. And it was truly the worst baseball you could possibly see. The Mets were horrible. But you had some interesting people. You had Lenny Randall. You had Willie Montañez. Doug Flynn was a very good second baseman. You had Frank Tavares at shortstop.
Oh, yeah.
Who was pretty good. I think he was a Giant for a while, wasn't he, Frank Tavares?
I think you're right.
I know he was a Pirate for a while. Lee Mazzilli, who was, the up-and-coming star, and Joe Torre managing the whole thing.
But that name, Lee Mazzilli, should have been a television chef, don't you think?
Should have been a television what?
Chef.
Yeah, I think so. Lee Mazzilli Spaghetti Stop or something like that. He actually married a woman that was on television, Danielle Fouquet, who was one of the original hosts of Evening Magazine.
What's her name?
Danielle Fouquet.
Well, that's the way you pronounce it.
Folquet. Fouquet.
Okay.
Okay.
On that note, Vinnie, you're never gonna get a better punchline. So on that note, I say I
see you Friday.
Farewell.
as they say in show business, always leave them wanting a little more, right?
Leave them. They say leave them laughing.
Leave them laughing. All right, Mikey. I'll see you on Friday if the Lord's will and the creek don't rise, pal.
These are the jokes, folks. See you for Freaky Friday.
See you for a Freaky Friday. Peace, love, and Manischewitz, baby.
What a wine. Seriously. See you, man.
See you, Mikey. Take care of yourself. Thank you all for listening, too. We'll catch up with you on